Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome to the Smercomics conference room. You've heard me talk about it on air, but I don't know that you've ever had a chance to look at it. And I have one more credenza about to arrive, and then I'm going to give you the full tour. That'll happen soon. The Saturday poll question, I think, is sadly as timely as it could be. And as I'll explain, we had it planned for weeks. Do we need government programs that specifically address the struggles facing young men? That is the Saturday poll question today at Smerconish.com. I shall explain in just a moment. Today, going to be a beautiful day in the Northeast. Great weather forecast. Truly might be like the final summery day. Go on out to Parks Racing and the Pennsylvania Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association presenting the 2025 Bet Parks Pennsylvania Derby and Cotillion Day. They're going to have two different races, each with the purse being $1 million in each of those races. And it's a family-friendly day, pony rides, string bands, face painters, live music, all free in the Parks Racing Picnic Grove, plus free Bet Parks PA Derby souvenir hats while they last. It all happens today up at Parks, PARXracing.com. Perfect day. Go have some fun. Do some mingling. The 2025 Bet Parks Pennsylvania Derby and Cotillion Day. You've got to be 18 to wager at Parks Racing, 21 to gamble at Parks Casino. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Okay, again, the Saturday poll question. Do we need government programs that specifically address struggles facing young men? Probably a politically incorrect question to raise, but that will not stop me. And let me just remind everybody of something. And on CNN today, I'm looking forward to showing this again on camera. Mine is a rudimentary version, so I'm just going to read to you from it. I'm looking at what used to be, I'm convinced I embarrassed them to remove this. I'm looking at what used to be on the Democratic National Committee website through the 2024 convention. And it was a listing of communities we serve. And on that list, at least 16 different groups. Frankly, my recollection is that it was longer. African Americans, Americans with disabilities, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, Democrats abroad, ethnic Americans, Latinos, faith community, LGBTQ+, Native Americans, rural Americans, seniors and retirees, small business community, union members, veterans, women, young people, and students. They would never say we serve men, much less we serve young men. But young men are in need. Young men are a constituent group that require attention. By way of illustration, you can't see this, but I can. New York Times, the Upshot column, Claire Kane Miller, May 14, 2025. Headline, "It's not just a feeling. Data shows boys and young men are falling behind." Quote, "Boys and young men are struggling across their lives in their educational achievement, mental health, transitions to adulthood. There are warning signs that they are falling behind even as their female peers surge ahead." And then she has all sort of data about education, data about college attendance, data about mental health, data about teenagers who are disruptive in school, data about the labor force participation rate having declined from men, and on and on and on. And I have data that I will cite today on CNN, including, let me just give you a couple of points. Girls graduate on time from high school and at higher rates than boys. Women easily outnumber men in college enrollment. In the spring, 58% of undergraduate students in the U.S. were women. Boys have significantly more behavioral and developmental issues. Teenage boys have fewer close friends. 15% of young men say they have no friends at all. Think about that. I mean, that's just a stomach punch, right? Male suicides have risen faster than female suicides in recent decades. At present, men commit suicide at more than 4 times the rate of women. So I had wanted to do a program on CNN solely focused on these issues. And weeks ago, we circled the date, September 20, today. Booked great guests far in advance. Richard Reeves, Rahm Emanuel, Scott Galloway. And all three have been spot on. They are not, Johnny come latelys on this subject. So we were intending to do this. And then came the assassination of Charlie Kirk, giving us all the more reason to want to focus on young men, for not the least of which reason is this. The guy who shot President Trump in Butler was 20. The guy who shot the healthcare executive in Manhattan, allegedly 26. The shooter who killed 2 and injured 21 at the Annunciation Catholic Church, 23. And the guy suspected of killing Charlie Kirk, 22. Every news cycle, there's more evidence as to something having gone wrong. And we weren't really going to focus on the violence. In fact, I'm really not going to focus on the violence on television today. It's just one more reason to do it. But I assure you, we were planning on doing it long before the events in Utah. So, I mean, much in the same way that I wanted to do on CNN a Mingle Project show, and you remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, that was booked to be solely focused, and then the news cycle got in the way and they didn't have the resources and we didn't do it. And frankly, that was something that gave rise to me coming to YouTube. If I couldn't deliver great content that I had planned there, I'm going to bring it because it's too important not to address. It's too important not to address. So, the point I want to make, among others, is that for those who say, oh, but what about our women? What about our young women? I suggest to you that when the men are suffering, by extension, the women are suffering. None of this is to take away or diminish the success and achievement of women. Amen. I am the son of and husband of a strong and successful woman or women. So I get it, and I'm all for it. All for it. Girl power. But the guys are suffering. And I think that, it's like the DNC list. If it were any other, how about this? If it were any other constituent group, and I could present to you the data as to their struggles, you'd be saying, what can we do? Like, let's talk about this. Let's establish policy. Let's figure it out. Well, it shouldn't be any different because it's men, young men in particular. They need help, and we got to do something about it. And Professor Galloway has just been great. He's been coming on my show on CNN literally for years, talking about this. And now others are doing likewise. Rahm Emanuel wrote a great essay recently for the Washington Post. He attributes much of the problem to housing issues. And Rahm said something. Let me just see if I have it in front of me. Rahm said something that might sound a little politically incorrect as well, but I think it's valid. Pardon me as I look at my notes. Here it is. This is Rahm Emanuel. Unpopular as it might be to say in some quarters of my party, the crisis affects one gender with particular potency, the housing crisis he's talking about. Like it or not, American men are still raised to believe that their role is to act as providers and protectors. None of that is to diminish from women in the workforce and doing well, but he's trying to explain why we're losing a generation, why we have so many who are not participating in anything these days, and how do we get them back into the fold as productive members of society. So my answer is affirmative. I wouldn't be dedicating an entire CNN program and spending as much time as I've spent on radio to this issue if I didn't believe it were legit. Do we need government programs that specifically address struggles facing young men? You know what Scott Galloway says we most need? A middle class. We need a middle class. So Rom, Scott, Richard Reeves caught my attention again recently when he wrote about this issue with Robert Putnam. Robert Putnam mingling, bowling alone. I mean, he wrote the critical book that has given rise to what I now describe as our need to reestablish common experience. So when Reeves and Putnam paired up recently, and they talked about how early in the 20th century, we went through a similar crisis. And one of the responses, and this brings it all home to the Mingle fold, one of the responses was on a community basis with service and volunteer and community organizations. Great example, the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts. Still in existence and still doing good work. So, yeah, that's today's poll question. That is today's poll question. And I think it warrants all this attention for the reasons that I just summarized. Hey, let me just mention, first of all, thank you for so many of you who watched the Mingle Project Episode 1, Restoring Common Experience. I can tell you, because we're locked in now, Wednesday at 1 o'clock is Episode 2. Yeah, that's a strange time, but we want to give it a roll. Wednesday at 1 o'clock, let's talk about sex. 2 great guests booked. I'm looking forward to that conversation. I think that there's really a demand for this, and I appreciate you subscribing to my YouTube channel. That's really important, and setting yourself up for notifications, okay? So I will see you on television, I hope, and I will see you for another Mingle Project on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Go vote at Smerconish.com. Do we need to be doing something for our young men? And watch today at 9 o'clock Eastern as we make the full case with great guests. Thank you, everybody.